The NBA Finals are here, and for us NBA fans, it's the best and worst time of the year. On one hand, we have the most important games ahead of us, but on the other, it's the last batch of games we'll get to see for another 4 months. We're here today to break down everything NBA Finals, from player rankings to positional breakdowns and overall series predictions. We're doing it all here on today's show. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Bakari Steve. How you doing? How you feeling on this Thursday morning?
Yeah, I'm excited. Today is the kickoff of the 2023 NBA Finals. We should have a good series in store between the Heat and the Nuggets, so I'm just ready to see how it goes.
This is your early reminder to support us. As just a quick shout out to you guys. I mean, we've had 3 or 4 straight podcasts between the two of us that have hit over 1,000 views. So, absolutely insane support that we've had as of late. Support's been crazy all around, but we're on the road to 300 subs, so help us get to that next big milestone. Tell a friend to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And without further ado, this is the Anomaly Podcast. Let's get into this coaching carousel. As Monty Williams, he signed a 6-year, heavily incentive-based deal with the Detroit Pistons yesterday. Detroit, they have a nice young core with Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, with the top 5 pick in this upcoming draft. Monty is more so known as a player coach, I want to say, than an X and O's guy, which I believe that's going to be better for Detroit because it's going to help with the development of their younger talent. Players around the league love them. Maybe that makes Detroit a bit more attractive of a place to go in free agency, not for the stars, but for like the good, better role players, right? Can this Detroit Pistons team be a sneaky playoff team with Monty at the helm now?
I think they still might be a year or maybe 2 away. But it's kind of hard to say because we didn't see how Cade played last year. So I think he only played 16 or so games. I'll have to see how he does this year to really get a better generalized idea because, quite frankly, the Pistons weren't good at all last year without Cade. They were a young team with a lot of rookies, yes. But they really didn't show any progress throughout all of last season. I think Jalen Duren probably showed the most promise. But now that you do have Monty Williams, and not to take anything away from Dwayne Casey, but you can kind of tell his love for coaching kind of faded in Detroit.
He was trying to retire early in the year.
Exactly, yeah. So, I think Monty would kind of rejuvenate this team, give them more motivation. Obviously, Cade coming back off that injury will help, and this pick will help, I think, a little bit better than the Jaden Ivey pick. But I think they still might be a year or 2 away from playoff contention. But who knows? Maybe they'll have like a Cavs 2022 run this year or whatever.
Yeah, they also, to me, they're probably going to have like a Pacers type year. I don't know if you remember where it's like when they had Tyrese and they were at full strength, they were a top 4 seed. But, whether if it was injury or just second half, the season catches up to them. They ended up falling out, maybe not making the play-in. But there has been 3 big head coaching hires so far. We've had Nick Nurse to the Sixers, Ime to the Houston Rockets, which we've talked about here on the pod, and, of course, now Monty Williams. What is your favorite pickup out of those 3?
I'd have to go Monty Williams. Monty Williams is someone I would love the Cavs to have as their coach. And I do like the Ime Udoka hire in Houston, but I think Monty is probably my favorite. The Nick Nurse hire, to me, I think he's, a decent coach. I think he gets a lot of credit for what Kawhi was able to do for Toronto. I think he gets a lot of that credit, not taking anything away from him, but ever since, those down years, ever since the bubble pretty much, the Raptors haven't had much success that they are expecting to have. They've been in the playoffs as a low seed. They've been in the play-in. But, I think there's a reason that Toronto was ready to move on from Nick Nurse. And I'm not sure, immediately going to Coach Joel Embiid, who has a known history of being a failure in the biggest moments, was the best solution. But who knows? Maybe they know something we don't.
Right. Nick Nurse was simply known for the box and one.
Yeah.
But Ime Udoka, that's an okay signing, right? We talked about that here on the pod. But the last big coach remaining, the last big domino is Doc Rivers. Where do you see him ending up? Phoenix is still an available job. I know there's some other places out there that he could go, but do you think Doc, is it more likely he signs with a place like Phoenix, or he just takes a year off?
I think he might take a year off. I honestly think he might even do TV in that year off. Just to have some type of because Doc has stated he loves basketball.
Right.
I think I want to say like one of the teams that were looking at him before they hired their coach was the Bucks. But I think Doc takes a year off. He's even stated after he got fired from Philly that he would like to keep coaching, but it would have to be in the right situation. And I think what he means by that is he doesn't want to go to a team like the Clippers or the 76ers were, where if the team doesn't get it done, he's the scapegoat.
Right.
I think whenever that job comes available, he'll accept that. But I think as of right now, Doc might just take a step back.
Yeah, he's only getting older, so
Yeah.
I mean, this next spot might be his last spot, especially if it's an early failure. But I would say maybe a Phoenix reunion with Chris Paul there.
I'm not sure how much Chris Paul likes.
Right.
Doc. That's the only reason I didn't.
That's true, and also Chris Paul may be traded this offseason if another team's willing to. So, I mean, I think it's more so, like you said, a chance that he takes a year off or a couple more weeks to decide maybe if he wants to go to a head coaching spot or a front office position. But moving over to some takeaways from our third-round losers, these are the teams that lost in the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. And we've been doing this for all of the playoff teams so far, so we only have 4 or 3 total takeaways left here, as only 3 more losers left. But the Boston Celtics, for me, my takeaway from this season for them, great season, right? But unless they get Damian Lillard this offseason, keep your duo. Don't do anything you're going to regret in 6 months to a year, right? Keep Jaylen Brown, keep Jason Tatum. Sure, you're going to have to pay them $600 million between the two of them because they're 2 All-NBA players, right? It's not like that comes around often to have those 2 talented guys on a team and that they do work together for the most part. I think unless Jaylen Brown is really adamant about getting out of Boston, and unless you can get Damian Lillard, do not do something you're going to regret. Like I said, keep the duo together. And sure, you might be in a financial, you might pigeonhole yourself with all the money wrapped up in your stars, but it's better than just having Tatum and a bunch of role players.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I hope the Celtics don't overreact and get rid of Jaylen Brown off of one bad series when. We all know, Tatum had a bad series in the finals.
Right.
Everybody.
Up to this point, Jaylen Brown's been a little bit better of a playoff performer.
Exactly, and that's why I hope they don't do anything they'll regret, like you said. But my takeaways from the Celtics, especially this playoff run, was they're still inconsistent, and half of that is because they have a rookie head coach. The inconsistent play for the Celtics has been an issue all year long. I think the Celtics had the most leads blown when they were leading by 20 or more. This season, and this is a 2 seed in the East. This is a team that everybody, especially once the Bucks went down, they were my title favorites before that, but this is a team who everybody pretty much expected to be right back in the same position they were in last year versus the Warriors, except with a different outcome because they had that finals experience. Instead, they go down 3-0 to an 8 seed. Not taking anything away from Jimmy and the Heat, but the Celtics team has all the talent in the world, as we saw for those 3 straight games, to compete at a high level and to be the best team in the league. They just couldn't do it consistently. Going into the head coach situation, Joe Mazzulla, there have been a lot of reports that he didn't have the locker room, he didn't have the trust of the guys, and on top of that, the players all year long from the beginning of the season, all types of reports are saying that they're basically giving him suggestions, and they're not really suggestions. They're telling him,
telling him how to do his job.
Exactly. There's a report about Grant Williams, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum met with Joe Mazzulla and said, hey, Grant Williams isn't getting enough playing time. We need him to play more. Whether that's Marcus Smart, in the huddle saying, I've been on the team the longest, you need to draw up shots for me, or, whatever the case may be. Joe Mazzulla, he needs to go out, get his own staff. He needs to put his voice in the locker room. He needs to
take
put
control.
that exactly. He needs to get control like Ime Udoka did of those guys, because it's not Ime's team anymore. It's Joe Mazzulla's. And I think once that happens, this team will play a lot better and consistently.
Well, what's crazy is, with how much playoff experience that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have at 25, 26 years old.
Yeah.
And I saw a stat the other day that Tatum's already top 10 in all-time playoff points.
That's insane.
He's already, I think, number 10 on that list. I was also looking at it, and LeBron is over 10,000, right? The next closest is MJ. You want to take a guess how many points MJ has at number 2?
6,000.
I think it is at 5,500 or something, or 6,000.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's there's a 5,000 or 6,000 point difference. But I guess if this Celtics team can continue to make deep playoff runs like this, Tatum might end up being the only. He might be one of the few that can compete with LeBron here in playoff points. But moving over to the Western Conference, the number 7 seed, a team that is one of the few playing teams to ever have success in the playoffs, and by few I mean 2, right? And we're seeing both of those this year. But the LA Lakers, for me, I think they need to revert back to their bubble construction. What I mean by that is they used to have a lineup of Avery Bradley, Danny Green, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and JaVale McGee. So what I mean by that is LeBron was the point guard of that team, surrounded by 2 3-and-D wings, and then they also have a rim protector so AD doesn't have to play the 5. Right? So whether that's Mo Bamba or whether if you bring in a center in this offseason, I think you need to revert back to that. Even at 39, going to be 40 years old next year, I think LeBron could still be the point guard of this team, facilitate, and it's a lot less on his body to not have to go out there every night and put up 30, right? So he can go out there and have 18 and 12, 18 and 14. He could just be the facilitator on this offense, and AD could be that 4. He doesn't have to worry about gassing himself out, right, like he did against Jokic. So they just need to get a rim-protecting big, let LeBron run the 1, and you can, if it's Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura at the 2 and 3 spot, you just surround them with 3-and-D wings. I think it doesn't make a lot of sense why they started chasing names and not going for fit, which is what won them a championship.
Yeah, I agree with you because we see the damage that it does having D'Lo out there with Austin Reeves and LeBron James, and we know LeBron at this point in his career he's more so going to be a liability on defense unless it's 5 seconds left in the game and he's guarding the person who's about to make the game winner. They need to make it to where they have a lot of guys to cover at this point in LeBron's career, a lot of guys to cover. Where he is at on the defensive end of the floor and to help him on offense because we saw him coast all playoffs, and that's kind of, I think, his new style of play. Make plays for others, take his when they're available. But my reason takeaway from the Lakers series was their duo just got outplayed by a better duo. At this point, Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, obviously. Nikola Jokic averaged a triple-double. Jamal Murray averaged, 28 or something like that for the series. 50-40-90 club during the series as well. There's just not a lot you can do on a duo like that. Especially, when they're playing at that high of a level. All 4 games were competitive, but at the end of the day, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic were able to outplay Anthony Davis and LeBron James. LeBron and AD had carried the Lakers all the way to the conference finals. But I think they just met their match. Not a lot you can do when it comes to that, except, because at that point it becomes, are your role players going to outplay their role players? And you still might lose just because of how good those top 2 players are. That kind of goes into what you said, kind of revert back to the bubble construction to help your duo play at the best of their abilities, which would help in a situation like that.
Right. Especially if you're the Lakers, you have to go all in too next season. That was going to be my other takeaway because it's probably LeBron's last season in LA next year as he's going to go and join his son here in 2 years. But breaking news here before we get into the top player of the week, Tom Brady, as we know that Jimmy Garoppolo, the newly acquired quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders, he failed his physical back in March when he was acquired. So if he can't pass a physical before the season starts, the Raiders will owe him no money and they'll be able to get that money back. The rumors have been that Brady's going to come out and play for the Raiders because he's been interested to play for the organization, or he's been interested in purchasing a part of the organization. That's what I meant to say. But a report that just came out, Brady said, I'm not playing again. Right? Obviously we know he's retired, but just wouldn't that be crazy? Brady comes out yet again to play for a team that he wants to buy.
Exactly. It'd be Michael Jordan and the Wizards, right? So.
That'd be the exact situation. Brady, hopefully he makes the right decision, and that is to stay retired. But moving over to Tap Player of the Week, it's the 10th annual Tap Player of the Week. It is now the second Miami Heat player in the 10-week history, and that now ties Denver and Boston as the only 2 other franchises with 2 Tap Player of the Week. So 6 total Tap Player of the Weeks in the conference finals teams. But go ahead and let us know who's in or who gets the award this week. You only had one series to choose from.
Yeah, so this week it was Caleb Martin. Surprise, surprise. Caleb Martin averaged 20 points, 10 boards, 55% from the field, and 52% from 3. Although his record isn't the shiniest at 1-2, Caleb Martin should have won Eastern Conference Finals MVP because Jimmy really didn't show up after those first 2 games. It was Caleb Martin who took over as the role of, basically the most consistent scorer, most consistent bucket getter on the Miami Heat team. And in Game 7, when it mattered most, he came alive. He had some timely buckets. He had some crazy shots. And he was consistent. And he was able to keep that lead on the Boston Celtics and not let them come back. We all know he lost the Eastern Conference Finals MVP by 1 vote. But regardless, Caleb Martin, he's been playing really good this playoffs. He showed out on the highest stage this series. He showed everybody what he can do. Hopefully he can carry that into the finals for this Heat team.
We're going to see where he ranks as now we're going to move into the top 10 players in the NBA Finals. It's important to preface this. This is not based on resume. This is not what you did last season. This is if these are the only 10 players in the NBA. This is how we're ranking them, right? Or if these are the only collection of 2 teams in the NBA, this is how we're ranking the top 10 players as of today, right? And to me, my number 10 is going to be a guy that's Bruce Brown, right? A guy who he played a pivotal part here in that Lakers series, and especially in that Game 1 where he had like 12 points in 9 minutes or whatever it was in that first quarter of Game 1. But this is just a 3-and-D wing that's going to hit his shots. He's going to play great defense, take the toughest matchup at times, and he's just a great piece to have around your star players. And Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and Jokic, who aren't necessarily known on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. And my number 10 is, my number 10 is Max Strus. This is somebody who, when he's cooking, whether it's off the dribble, off the screen, or whatever, a catch and shoot. He can be a deadly shooter, but the only reason I have him at number 10 is because he just like another shooter on this Heat team, if he's not making any shots, sometimes it's hard to watch because he's going to keep shooting them, but they won't go in. But Max Strus, regardless, if he's cooking, he can change the game for this Miami Heat team in a positive way. He can get them some much-needed floor spacing, and he could just be another scorer. We saw some shots that he hit even in a last series versus Celtics. They were timely shots. They were big buckets. Sometimes when the Celtics would come back, Max Strus was there to deliver a corner 3 or a wing 3 in somebody's face, and that's exactly what they're going to need in the finals versus this tough Denver Nuggets team.
Moving over to number 9, we both have the same guy. It's the starting point guard for the Miami Heat, Gabe Vincent, a guy who, he plays his role very well. He's a very solid player. He doesn't do anything exceptional, right? He's a bit of a facilitator. He can score a little bit. He can play a little bit of defense. He does about everything just okay, right? But he's going to be the starting guard here, and I think his defense on Jamal Murray in this series it's going to be a pivotal part to take pressure off of Jimmy Butler, right? And also just to slow down one of the Nuggets' best scorers.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and it'll also be in that, maybe that fourth scoring option role. If he's open, take the shot. Right. We've seen him do it before. We've seen him actually be the leading scorer in playoff games for the Heat this season.
He's a shot chucker.
Yeah, he can do it when he's asked to. More importantly, his shot needs to be falling when he does it. But like you said, this defense on Jamal Murray, I'm not sure if there's any containing Jamal Murray at this point. But his defense on Jamal Murray will be able to decide a lot of what type of fast break opportunities and type of looks that the Heat are able to get on their own offense if they can hold Jamal Murray to some misses.
It's going to be fun to see where Jamal Murray ranks on our offseason point guard rankings. There's questions. Is he, or would you prefer a guy like him or like a Kyrie Irving? Not asking you to answer that now, but that's just going to be something that we have to answer there in the offseason.
I'm sure if Kyrie was in this situation, though, we would be seeing some spectacular moves like we've seen before.
I think the Nuggets would have swept multiple teams by now. But moving over to the number 8 spots, for me, it's one of my team captains, one of my guys that, whether if it's in 2K or just in real life, he's a guy that isn't a superstar, but I would just love him on my team. Especially, not the Cavs, right? He can come off the bench for the Cavs. We do have a guy named Darius Garland, a guy who could compete with Kyrie for the best point guard this franchise has ever seen. But Kyle Lowry, a guy who is a champion. He brings that veteranship, that leadership to this Miami Heat team. He plays gritty defense. He makes timely shots. And is he streaky at times? Sure, but he's been that his entire career. And at the end of the day, he is a champion, right? He won a champion with Toronto in 2019. And this is a guy that's going to come off the bench for the Heat, and he's going to be that spark plug in most cases that is going to bring them over the top because they haven't had their sixth man for the majority of this playoff run. And Kyle Lowry's been really just that, and he's the reason I believe that they made it this far, as crazy as that sounds.
Yeah, his body is probably broke down by this point, but we'll have to see. Shout out Kyle Lowry. Every part of it.
All right.
My number 8 is Aaron Gordon. This is somebody who, he plays that dunker role really good for Jokic. He sits there, waits for Jokic to get double teamed, which I don't know why teams insist on doing it, but they do, and they lead. This is why this Nuggets team is so dangerous, because everybody is a threat when Jokic is on the floor. But Aaron Gordon, he takes up that mantle of being able to score the ball when Jokic is being pressured really well, whether that's corner threes that we saw him hit, especially at the end of the series versus the Lakers, Game 4, I believe, or if that's, in that dunker's position, sitting on the block waiting for Jokic to hit him from the high key. Aaron Gordon, and not to mention his defense too. He's a big body. He can stay in front of Jimmy. I'm sure that'll be his matchup, yes. Jimmy or Bam, because of how versatile he is on defense. He is someone you should have on your team, especially when you have a phenomenal duo like the Nuggets do. He is a very complimentary role for this Nuggets team.
Moving over to number 7, I have the 10th ever TAP Player of the Week, Caleb Martin, a guy who he was really just like an afterthought here for the majority of the season, but this postseason he's really stepped it up, and he's been probably he's been the X factor for the Miami Heat here in this offseason, as he's went from a bench role to a starting role consistently every night, and he's giving them 15 to 25 points a night. This is a guy who, like you said, missed out on the Eastern Conference Finals MVP by 1 vote, and that's a guy that's on a team with Jimmy Butler. Caleb Martin has been playing his role. He's been that spark plug that they've needed. And like I said, he's probably the reason they've made it this far.
Yeah, and my number 7 is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, KCP. KCP is a champion. KCP has been here before. He has done that before. KCP, we saw him in the Lakers series. He just hit shot after shot when he was asked to. I think it was it, Game 3 or Game 2? He had that phenomenal third quarter.
It was Game 2, I believe.
Yeah, Game 2. He had like 12, 15 points in the third quarter, all off of Jokic passes. It's not fake, guys. That is the glory of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He is a primed 3-and-2, 3-and-D wing. He plays defense. He hits those corner threes, wherever they're from. He does what you ask him for his role, and he's phenomenal at it. A big piece of this Nuggets success this season. He is a huge pickup for this Nuggets team, and everybody in that locker room will tell you so. KCP is ranked number 7 for me.
Yeah, he's a guy that didn't make my list strictly because I believe a lot of people can play that role, but I mean, it takes a special player to play that role. Not everybody, at the same time, not everybody can take that smaller role and be effective at it. Because if you're only getting 4 shots a night, you better make 3 of them.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're not going to be much in the rotation. But moving over to the number 6 spot, I have Aaron Gordon, the guy who's going to have the Jimmy Butler matchup for probably the entirety of this series. And if it's not Jimmy Butler, like you mentioned, it will be Bam. This is a guy that's going to be guarding the best player on the Heat this entire series, a guy who could maybe have that Iggy impact where he might steal Finals MVP strictly off his defense. Let's say if he holds Jimmy to like 15 points a game, right? That'd be the only way I could see that happening. But Aaron Gordon is just a guy that he plays that dunker. He's in a dunker's role, dunker spot rather, and he's going to hit the timely threes. He's not the most consistent, but the little offense he gives you is only a plus with the defense that he gives you.
I agree with you. My number 6 is now Caleb Martin. Caleb Martin, he's the TAP Player of the Week. He played phenomenal in that Boston Celtics series. Like you said, he was pretty much an overthought, for pretty much his entire career. He stepped up this playoffs. We've seen this happen before where a player like this will step up, go get paid, and fall off the planet of the earth again or revert back to what they were. But regardless, Caleb Martin, he's coming into the finals. He's coming inside the finals hot. Can he have another phenomenal series? Time will tell, but he has been playing out of his mind. And I do want to say that I'm just now realized that I made a personal error. I see that I had KCP over Aaron Gordon. Folks, I do not think KCP is better than Aaron Gordon. It just happened when we were making this list. I had a lot of brain farts trying to think of both sides of the teams. But guys, I do not think KCP is better than Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, I saw that in the rankings, and I figured it was a mistake. But, I gave him like a questionnaire. It was like 30 questions to answer for the prep of this podcast. And that was one of them. And it's easy to make mistakes like that. But just in case you had KCP over Aaron Gordon, I had to leave that in. But moving over to the top 5 players in the NBA Finals, I think you can all assume who these 5 players are, but let's see if we have them in the same spots. In my number 5, we both have this guy, Michael Porter Jr., a flamethrower. The famous Michael Never Swing the Rock Porter. This is a guy who his career high is 1 assist, right? This is a guy who, when he catches the ball, you better crash the glass because it's going up, right? Doesn't matter if there's 1 people, 2 people, or the entire team. This guy acts like he's playing 1-on-5. When he touches it, it's going up, basically. This is a guy who, in high school, was the number 1 recruit, came into college, and if he didn't have all those back injuries, was going to be probably the number 1 pick in any draft that he was. And he lands in a perfect spot for Denver. They gave him 2 or 3 years to get his body ready and just get mentally and physically ready. And now he's playing a pivotal part on a championship team. And can't say enough about Mr. Flamethrower.
Yeah, I am still sick to my stomach to this day that the Cavs did not draft Michael Porter Jr.
That was the Ben Simmons draft.
Yeah, that was the Colin Sexton draft. We drafted Colin Sexton instead of Michael Porter Jr. I remember I was sitting there and they were like, "Yeah, the Cavs are, they're interested in Michael Porter Jr." And here we go, Cavs pick is in. They say Colin Sexton. I was sick to my stomach. Regardless, we never knew.
Wasn't he the next pick?
No, MPJ went 14, I believe.
Oh, yeah, he did fall a little bit, yep.
Yep, he fell because of those back injuries. Regardless, I am happy to see that Michael Porter Jr. is getting the recognition. He's finally playing. Last season he had that down year when he did play because of that nerve damage in his back. But Michael Never Swing the Rock Porter Jr. is back in full effect, and he's playing great. I think somebody asked me who would I rather take, Michael Porter Jr. or Caleb Martin. I said MPJ because we see what Caleb Martin is doing now, but it feels temporary. We've seen Michael Porter Jr. do this all season.
Yeah, I feel like that's a no-brainer.
Exactly, and even 2 years ago before he got hurt when he was still healthy, we saw him doing pretty much the exact same thing. So Michael Porter Jr., number 5.
Yeah, this is a guy who's 6'10", 6'11", shooting 45 from 3. So
exactly.
This is a guy
and he can't dribble. He can't create his own shot. So
he's compared to KD for a reason.
Right.
But moving over to number 4, I went with the defensive anchor, a guy who's an all-NBA defender, and Bam Adebayo, a guy who's going to have the Nikola Jokic assignment. And look, not to discredit Bam Adebayo, but if Anthony Davis was gassed by the end of Game 2 guarding Nikola Jokic, and you could tell for the rest of the series that AD wasn't fully there, it's going to be interesting to see if Bam has enough grit and enough stamina, I guess is a good way to put it, to guard Nikola Jokic. I will say that we didn't mention this earlier, but this is a matchup between a team with the highest altitude in the league in the Denver Nuggets compared to the lowest altitude in the league in the Miami Heat. So it's going to be a crazy series just stamina-wise, going from Denver to Miami and back to Denver, hopefully. But Bam Adebayo, a guy that he's going to have to be there from Game 1 to Game 7 if it goes that far. And if he doesn't play at least solid defense on Jokic, this team doesn't have a chance.
Yeah, so they don't have a chance. I'm kidding. But, Bam, he severely struggled last series, we all know. I mean, I think the defining moment of his series was Game 7 versus the Celtics. The Miami Heat had a loose ball, finds Bam right under the hoop, and Derek White is just standing there, didn't even contest the shot, and Bam completely missed the layup. He just missed the layup. That kind of, I guess showed the struggles he was having the entire series. Hopefully he can turn it around this series, but yeah, I agree with you. His defense on Nikola Jokic is the determining factor, and, I think, regardless of whatever team won versus the that Eastern Conference Finals, I think it was just all but figured out that whoever was going against Nikola Jokic was going to get their lunch money took from them. I don't believe that the Miami Heat have the same defense that the Lakers had, where they were able to put a big body on Nikola Jokic and have AD roam in that help side defense. Bam is your tallest player. Bam is your biggest player, I think, on the roster, which is insane because Bam is 6'9".
Omer year 7, but he doesn't play.
Yeah, he doesn't even play. Hopefully, this Miami, Eric Spoelstra, I know he'll figure something out, but Bam, number 4.
Yeah, we'll have to see because we'll talk about it here in a second, but Highsmith plays for Miami.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about
that. But last season, weirdly enough, Rui gave Nikola Jokic more issues than Anthony Davis, right? So maybe they go with the smaller defender. Maybe have Bam is smaller than AD, but maybe have like Highsmith on him,
Rui, I think.
right? And have Bam roam like Anthony Davis. We'll have to see. We'll get into that in just a moment here. But moving over to the number 3 spot, a guy who is making his case for a top 5 point guard in the NBA. That's a guy named Jamal Murray, a guy who in the bubble was putting up 40, 50 a night. It seemed like he was one of those guys that was exploding there in that closed circle there for the NBA action. But Jamal Murray, he's a guy who's putting up 25 to 30 a night. You know, he started off this year slow, rightfully so, coming off of his knee injuries. But Jamal Murray, he's been catching his stride. He's back to that bubble version, if not better. And it remains that pick and roll between him and Jokic is the best in the league. And that's single-handedly winning them every single game. But Jamal Murray, when you have a guy that can give you 27 and 10 with Jokic, it's almost hard. It's impossible to beat.
Yeah, like you said, he started off the season really slow. He was pretty much, like that the entirety of the season, maybe until like that last, month or so of the season. Jamal Murray, he came back and he had flashes, but he just didn't look the same. It is fair to say now that those allegations are completely beat. Jamal Murray is back to who he was, back to who he knows he can be, and confidence is everything. I think all he needed was to get in the playoffs and play good, and we see where his confidence is taking him now. He knows that he's that guy again. And it's great to see. There are games where Jamal Murray has a bigger impact on winning than Nikola Jokic. So whenever you can say that, being on the team with a 2-time MVP, he could have even been 3. Jamal Murray, he rightfully so is the 3rd best player in this finals, which is crazy to say.
Right. So. Yeah, absolutely. You would think it would be Bam, right? But right. I gave the edge to Jamal Murray. I wanted to see what you would say, and it seems like you agree. But moving over to number 2, is it going to be Jokic or is it going to be Jimmy? For me, it's going to be Jimmy Butler, a guy who's had maybe the best individual playoff run this entire postseason, going through the number 1 seed, the favorite, the Milwaukee Bucks, getting rid of them in 5, not to mention putting up like 55 in that closeout game. Then you have, then you go over to New York playing a tough, gritty defensive team, take care of them, and then you beat Boston in 7 games. This is a team that doesn't, every single series it seems like most people pick against them because they don't have the depth. They don't have as much star power as this team or that team, right? But every single series they fight, and they're all led by Jimmy Butler, who has got them in the finals for the 2nd time in 3 years. Shout out to Jimmy Butler, but he's my number 2 guy.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler is my number 2 guy. It's funny, when we did our individual player rankings, Jimmy was the unquestioned number 1. And here we are doing, top 10 players in the finals, and Jimmy is number 2. But that's to say that not taking anything away from Jimmy, but the number 1 guy has really improved. It feels like he's just been more dominant as deeper the playoffs have gone. But Jimmy, he is the sole reason that the Miami Heat are here, along with Caleb Martin for 3 or so games last series. But Jimmy Butler, there is no Miami Heat even in a second round if there is no Jimmy Butler. There is no Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals if there is no Jimmy Butler.
Right.
So Jimmy Butler, he is the number 2 player in this finals to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you did your rankings, but for me, it was more so just overall player. It wasn't even just based off the playoffs.
Oh yeah.
And Jimmy Butler's had an amazing playoffs. Don't get me wrong, but he's just not on the tier, or even below of this number 1 guy, and that is Nikola Jokic, a guy who's arguably the number 1 player in the NBA. Now, for me, I wouldn't go that far just yet, but he keeps changing my mind each and every game. Nikola Jokic is amazing. He does it on both sides of the ball, surprisingly. I think his defense has been disrespected this entire year, and he's really stepping up here, at least in the playoff run, defensively. So his defense has been there for the most part. Offensively, we know what he brings. He is a guy who almost won 3 straight MVPs for a reason, and he's showing the world now on a national stage that even though I play in Denver, I'm still that guy, and I'm still arguably the best player in the world, even though he doesn't look like it.
Nikola Jokic, like you said, to me, he's just improving. Every time I watch him, it's like I learn something new about Nikola Jokic, where I'm like, wow, this guy is that good at basketball. Like, well, I don't know why I've been doubting this guy for so long. And it's crazy because I still feel like, there's a small part of me that still feels like he hasn't ran into the perfect storm of another team, whether that's playing, like our want to see him how he does against the Bucks in the finals or against
fully healthy Suns.
Yeah, exactly, or a Celtics team in the finals. Regardless, Nikola Jokic is here, and he is far and away the best player in this finals, 2-time MVP. We've seen him get to the second round by himself, with the second best player being Aaron Gordon, who I think he's 6 on your list, 7 on mine. So Nikola Jokic, he is that guy. Rightfully so, he deserves to be in the conversation for best player in the league right now. And if he gets a ring, he's already going to be an all-time great, which is crazy to say.
Yeah, he's already a top 5, maybe even I wouldn't say top 5, but he's definitely a top 10 center of all time already.
Yeah.
Right? You add a ring to that, he's flirting with the top 5, right? Up there with Shaq, Hakeem, and Kareem, and Wilt, and all them boys.
Bill Russell.
Bill Russell, right? I forgot he passed. Rest in peace, right? But Nikola Jokic, right? It's going to be a big finals for him, but saying that they haven't ran into a team that's at their fullest potential, is this ring going to be diminished a little bit to you? Maybe a little asterisk. I've never done asterisks with rings because injuries happen. That's a part of sports. Same with the bubble. Everybody had the same conditions. But would you have a little bit of an asterisk here next to Nikola Jokic's ring if he does get it?
I agree with you. Asterisks sometimes a ring is a ring to me. But considering that, I guess the only Minnesota, they didn't have Naz Reid and who was it, Jaden McDaniels.
Cat was just coming back from injury.
Exactly, Cat was coming back. Second round, like
Gobert
you said,
was
they
busy
didn't
punching teammates.
Second round, obviously they didn't have the Suns didn't have Chris Paul. For the remainder of that series,
and then DeAndre Ayton.
Exactly, and then DeAndre Ayton, he just doesn't show up even when he's asked to. No injury, required for him. He's just soft. And then they played
pacifier.
They played the Lakers, and it was a competitive 4-game sweep. But considering that the Lakers were the toughest team they played, and the Lakers themselves were a 7 seed, and we saw sometimes the Lakers' downfall versus the other 2 teams they played, it'll be hard, I think, not to. But 3 years from now, we're not even going to remember. We're just going to remember. It's almost like Giannis. When he won his ring, Kyrie and James Harden gets hurt. I'm trying to think. I don't even remember who else they played that year. Can't remember who else they played that year. But, regardless, the thing about that ring was, well, Giannis got a cakewalk to the finals because everybody got hurt. Well, Giannis has a ring, so.
Right. But like you said, but I think the biggest thing we'll look back on is that he beat LeBron and AD in the playoffs, right, on his way to a ring. But moving over to we're just going to do a quick recap of our top 10 rankings. My 10 through 6 is Bruce Brown, Gabe Vincent. We both had at number 9. Kyle Lowry, Caleb Barton, and Aaron Gordon. Go ahead and read your 10 through 6.
My 10 through 6 is Max Strus, Gabe Vincent. I'm going to actually switch this on the fly. KCP,
yes.
Aaron Gordon, and Caleb Martin.
Our top 5 is the same. We have MPJ at 5, Bam Adebayo at 4, Jamal Murray, Jimmy Butler, and Nikola Jokic to round off our top 10 players in the NBA Finals. But we're going to switch over here. We have the top 10 players done. We're going to go to positional matchups. These are the projected lineups for Game 1 and just the overall series, right? But point guard, who do you give the edge to, Jamal Murray or Gabe Vincent?
I'm going to give it to Gabe Jamal Murray. I think this one, if you have to think about that one, you must not have. You must be, asking a newborn who they think is better.
I don't even think Miami Truthers are going to go with Gabe Vincent here. But obviously, Jamal Murray gets the edge there at the point guard position. We're going to go shooting guards now. I would prefer Max Strus, and you would prefer KCP. Just quick argument. I mean, for me, Max Strus is a guy that I think defensively he's not on the level of probably KCP, which is saying a lot at the same time of not saying anything. But Max Strus, I think when he gets going offensively, I would prefer his offensive production over a guy like KCP.
I see that argument. My argument with KCP is that KCP, he can guard your best player on the perimeter, and he can also, if you ask him to get 12 to 15 points off wide open looks, he can do that. There's a reason guys like LeBron James and Nikola Jokic, who are pass-first guys, like playing with KCP because they know that he will deliver when he's asked to. He doesn't do too much on offense because that's what that's what they have MPJ and Jamal Murray for, and even Aaron Gordon, KCP, he fits right into that. He fits that sleeve of playing right into his role on offense, and he plays phenomenal defense in return.
We're going to move over here to the front court, as MPJ or Caleb Martin. I went MPJ.
Yeah, I go MPJ here too. Like I mentioned in our player rankings, MPJ has been doing this when he hasn't been hurt. Caleb Martin, he's kind of new to the scene. We don't even know if he'll be able to, we haven't even seen a full season of Caleb Martin doing this. So
Caleb Martin might get the Michael Porter matchups here in this final. So we'll have to see if Caleb Martin can play at least some competent defense. But the power forward position, Aaron Gordon or Jimmy Butler, I'm just going to speak for you.
Yeah.
We're going to go with Jimmy Butler. In the center position, we both have Nikola Jokic. So to round out the starters, right? So we give 3 positional advantages to the Denver Nuggets. We split at the shooting guard position. And, of course, Jimmy Butler wins at least one spot here for the Miami Heat. Moving over to the bench unit, the first 2 guys off the bench, it's the first matchup, Bruce Brown or Kyle Lowry. I would prefer Kyle Lowry.
I prefer Bruce Brown. I think, I just don't know if I would trust Kyle Lowry as much as I trust Bruce Brown, strictly because sometimes I feel like Kyle Lowry can get played off to the court. Depending on what matchups are like and depending on what his offensive output is like, I think I'd rather have Bruce Brown, who, worst case scenario, he's going to be a really good screener.
Right. I went with Kyle Lowry just because he has veteranship. He has championship DNA. Whether you want to say he was carried by Kawhi or what. Kyle Lowry put together a great 2 or 3 games to end that series, especially that Game 7 in the second half of the game too, to kill the narrative of him being a playoff choker, right? But Kyle Lowry, he's a big part of that Toronto Raptors championship, and to me, I would prefer his offensive output or defensive output over Bruce Brown. But moving
that was also 10 years ago. This ring, no, I'm playing.
It was 4, right? Kyle Lowry.
What is he now? 38.
He is 38, but. He has a lot to carry on his back, right? At the 7th man, we have the Duncan Robinson or Jeff Green. This one was a tough one for me, but strictly just because Jeff Green will either put up 2 points or 5 points a night. I went with Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson's either going to shoot 5 of 6 from 3, or he's going to shoot 0 of 18. There is no in between. Yeah. But I think if he can get going, it's going to make this series very interesting for the Miami Heat.
Yeah, and I have Jeff Green here. As everybody can see, my theme now is consistency. I like consistent players. I like knowing. Knowing what I can expect from players. And Jeff Green, I know that like you said, he might give me 2 or 5 points. I think he's a better defender than Duncan Robinson, and that goes without saying.
We could be.
Yeah, that is true. But the only thing with Duncan Robinson is that consistency. Like you said, he can shoot 3 of 17 from the field and get played off the court because he has a negative 35 because of his defense, or he can have 25 points on 5 threes. So
right.
I only went with Jeff Green because of that consistency issue and because he's not a two-way traffic cone when he isn't playing offense.
Moving over to the last man that's going to play some meaningful minutes, I could have went with Reggie Jackson here, but Reggie Jackson's only played a couple games at the end of that Lakers series, where Christian Braun, the rookie there for Denver, he's played pretty much every single game so far, so I put him in at the 8th slot. Would you prefer Christian Braun or a Tyler Hero coming off of a broken hand?
Does Christian Braun have a song named after him?
I don't think so.
Exactly. I have Tyler Hero here. Broke hand or not, he's better than Christian Braun blindfolded and with a cast on. So Tyler Hero.
Christian Braun is a poor man's Dante DiVincenzo, and that's saying a lot, right? But
Dante DiVincenzo is already a poor man's Dante DiVincenzo.
At least Dante can knock down a 3 here and there and play some defense. Christian Braun's only bringing the defense. He's just bringing grit with him on the court. I haven't really seen much offensive output from Christian Braun, but agreed. I'm gonna say Tyler Hero. We're not sure as of right now how much he's going to play in this series. There's a lot of speculation going around, but I think Tyler Hero with his left hand, I'm going to take over Christian Braun. If Tyler Hero can get back to, if he just shows no rust, I think it makes this series a lot more interesting on paper. Mm-hmm. But then the head coaching advantage. This one could be interesting as, to me, I gave the advantage to, in my opinion, the best coach in the NBA, Eric Spoelstra, over Denver's Mike Malone.
Yeah, I agree with you. I got Eric Spoelstra here. Eric Spoelstra, he's been doing this a long time. He's rightfully so. He's been under the wing of the Godfather, Pat Riley, since he took over as a coach. I'm sure Pat Riley's probably showed him a few videos of his family in Pat Riley's basement because Pat Riley is part of the Mafia, and that's why he were able to get that win. But regardless, Eric Spoelstra, he is part of that Heat culture. He is Heat Nation. He's been there and done that. I trust Eric Spoelstra a lot more than I think Mike Malone. Didn't he just have an interview this morning about the Lakers again?
No, I didn't even notice.
No,
to be
I'm
honest
playing.
with you.
I'm
Okay,
playing.
all
It's
right.
just because he's been keeping the Lakers' name in his mouth for so long. But I believe in Eric Spoelstra.
No, absolutely. So just to recap here, our positional advantages, as you see, for the ones that we both agreed on, we have the logo on their respective sides. And obviously, split is self-explanatory. We split on certain decisions there. But if we just look at the graphic, I mean, it seems like I believe in the Heat in their positional players more than the Nuggets, right? And I have a 6-3 advantage for the Heat for the first 8 in the coach. You have a 6-3 for the Denver Nuggets, and that is not including their coach. So obviously, we're still split on that, but that's just how it is. We're going to move over here to our predictions. 44 minutes in. If you made it this far, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Obviously, you made it this far, and you at least enjoy a little bit of what you're hearing. But the Nuggets and the Heat, they're here for the 2023 Finals. You see our records on the screen. We both took a major hit in this past round as we both picked against the Miami Heat and the Denver Nuggets. But I'm still 9-5. I'm at 64% correct rate so far. I believe I've missed on Milwaukee, the Cavs, Golden State in that second round against the Lakers, and then the 2 conference finals winners. But for me, I think this is going to be a very interesting finals. Go ahead and just give us a quick breakdown of what you think is going to happen, because I think for the Nuggets, they're the key for the Heat. I guess I'll say this before you go is they have to make Jokic work, because when Jokic had to work in game 1 and 2 of that series, it made it more difficult on him, right? Especially in that game 2. I believe the Heat, whether they're going to play zone again like they did last season or last series, I think their goal has to have Bam on him at all times, and then you have to have a help defender double team him all the time, and just make it difficult on Jokic.
Yeah, and I think the crazy thing is, I think when forcing Nikola to mess up or put pressure on him, he's even in those games versus the Lakers when the Lakers were doing it to the best of their ability, he was still getting 31, 21, and 14. Nikola Jokic, he's obviously a generational talent, and if the Heat do try and run that zone, Nikola is a far better passer and offensive player. That goes without saying, than Time Lord, who would get the ball and kind of freeze up, or even Al Horford, who kind of get the ball and throw a turnover. Nikola Jokic won't make those same mistakes. And if this Heat want to go back to that zone, you're making the Nuggets a lot more dangerous team, because now everybody is open for that catch and shoot 3. We all know the Nuggets, sometimes it feels like they can't miss. The Nuggets' objective should be to shut Jimmy down no matter what. If Caleb Martin's going to go get 25 for you for 4 straight games, or if Bam is going to get 30 points for 4 straight games, I think you let them do it. Don't let Jimmy Butler beat you, because you have the offensive firepower on your own side.
Yeah, I think the game plan if I'm the Miami Heat, if I'm Eric Spoelstra, again, I'm nowhere on his level of just thinking about the game, right? But I believe I would rather live with the role players of the Denver Nuggets beating me than Nikola Jokic, excuse me. So to me, it's take Nikola Jokic out the game. Let Jamal Murray go out there and put up 40 or 50 a game, right? Let Michael Porter Jr. take another step up and put up 30 a game. This Nuggets team, they have a lot of offensive firepower, which is crazy, because it's like, okay, we took Jokic out, but now we have to deal with Michael Porter and Jamal Murray, who two
even
guys
Aaron Gordon.
Right. Those 2 guys first were capable of putting up 50 to 60 points a night combined. And then you add Aaron Gordon, you add the shooters around them. So this Nuggets team, everything on paper says they're going to blow the Heat out, but I think if you're the Heat, you have to make things difficult, and I'd rather live with the role players beating us than Nikola Jokic. Which side of the spectrum would you stand on? Would you rather have let Jokic just put up 50 against you, or stop the role players? Or I guess, would you rather have Jokic beat you and or take him out the game?
I think I'd rather have him beat you, because the dangerous thing about involving role players is that there are a lot more role players than there are stars on any given team. You take Jokic out of the game, well, that leaves you with a team full of role players, pretty much, if you want to put them all into that category. We all know Jamal Murray and MPJ aren't, role players, sort of say, but they aren't Nikola Jokic. And, I think when you talk about role players, you're talking about anybody other than Nikola Jokic, where if you could shut down your role players and have them struggle, have them doubting themselves, have their confidence shot, and you're relying on Nikola Jokic, who we know can be very passive sometimes. He sometimes, it takes him a while to have that, to turn that mindset on, like, I need to go score. If you can make him go do that, sometimes it'll be too little too late by the time he does decide it. And if you can pressure everybody else on defense and kind of say, hey, Bam, you're going to have to play Nikola one-on-one, and kind of just, 2s are better than 3s at that point. I believe that the Heat will be able to get it done a little bit better that way, just because, like I said, there's something about confidence and, belief in your shot. And, when everybody has it going, that's dangerous because there is going to be a game or two where Jokic does have it going as well. You just have to me, you have to limit everybody else's contribution.
Yeah. Before we get into our official predictions, which is going to be here in just 30 seconds or so, I want to mention Denver's 12-3 this postseason, and they've won every single game won this postseason. The Miami Heat are 12-6. And they've also won every single game one of this postseason. It's going to be a very interesting game one. Maybe is this the turning point of the series? Miami, obviously, you're the road team. You just have to win one on the road, right, and steal home court advantage. But who are your X factors for both teams, right? If you had to have an X factor for the starters and the bench, I'll kick it off here. I'll say that, for the starters, I think Michael Porter Jr. for the Denver Nuggets has to be their X factor, a guy who's going to have to add that spark. If they do decide to try and take Jokic out, Jamal is going to have attention on him. You're going to have to be that Kevin Durant projection, right? You're going to have to be that guy that, as he was in this entire playoff run and at times in the regular season, be that 6'10" scorer that we all know Michael Porter can be, because nobody can guard him, right? Nobody can guard him if he's hot, and I think he can really take this team to be dangerous to the next level. And really blow this Heat team out the water. And then off the bench for the Denver Nuggets would probably have to be a guy like Bruce Brown. A guy who could just come in and play that gritty defense on Jimmy Butler, make everything more difficult than it's already going to be with Aaron Gordon. And if it's not Jimmy Butler, go and stick on Kyle Lowry, go and stick on Max Strus or Caleb Martin, and just make it difficult for all the guys offensively to score.
Yeah, my starter X factor will probably have to be Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon, this is somebody who almost averaged 20 points a game when Jamal Murray and MPJ were out. We saw, the offensive versatility that Aaron Gordon had those 2 years when everybody was getting healthy. And, obviously, rightfully so, he has had to take a step back because the two stars have come back. But if Aaron Gordon can up his productivity, specifically from the, stretching the floor from the three-point line, if he could do it like he did in Game 4 of that Lakers series, where he can hit those, 1 or 2 threes, 1 or 2 timely corner threes whenever they need, as well as, play that prime Ducker's position, as well as playing great defense on Jimmy. I think that will benefit this Nuggets team a lot because you're not asking as much out of Jokic, MPJ, or Jamal Murray. And off the bench, I'm actually going to go Christian Braun here, because if he can come in and give good quality minutes playing Jimmy Butler, or even if Tyler Hero comes back, if he can play great defense on Tyler Hero or Jimmy Butler off that bench, because then you're taking pressure off your starters, you're letting your starters get rest, and you have somebody to come in to limit Jimmy. Now you're asking somebody on the Heat who, they don't have the greatest track record of consistency, other than Caleb Martin percentage-wise. So, you're asking one of those guys to say, hey, go get 25. So
right. Bam Adebayo would be my starter X factor for the Miami Heat. A guy that, like we talked about earlier with the player rankings, he's going to have the Jokic assignment, and he's going to have to make it difficult for Jokic. If it's not Bam, it's going to have to be a guy like Gabe Vincent, a guy that he's going to need to give you at least 15 a night to make this series competitive. And then off the bench is probably going to have to be Tyler Hero, strictly just because we know the talent that he can be. This is a guy who was averaging 20 to 22 points a game. He was this team's leading scorer right throughout the regular season, and if he didn't break his hand in the first round, this team might look even more dangerous right at this point. But Tyler Hero, if he does come back, which version of him are we going to get? Hopefully, it's the 22-point version of Tyler Hero.
Yeah, my X factors for the Heat would probably say, for starters, it'd have to be Caleb Martin. I think Caleb Martin is still in the X factor tier because like I said, it's not like he's been doing this a long time. It's not like he came out this season guns blazing and played like this the entire season. It's not like, it feels like, he still has something to prove to me before I can say, hey, he is going to give you 20 and, in his sleep. Caleb Martin, you have to come out and play exactly like you did in that Celtic series. You have to come out demanding the ball. You have to come out shooting 55 from the field, 52 from the three. You have to come out knocking down your shots. You have to come out playing, great defense on whoever that may be, Aaron Gordon or MPJ. You have to come out and do that again. Don't let just one series against the arch rival, go to your head. Come out and do it again. Show you have something to prove as well. You still have something to prove. And off the bench, I honestly probably say Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson, you have to come in with a mindset to not get played off the court. You have to make your open threes. You have to give effort in that zone because that's what Miami runs when you're in the game. Duncan Robinson, you are the X factor off the bench because your threes, if you make 4 out of 5 of them, that's 12 points right there. 12 points off the bench. If you make 5 out of 6, that's 15 points. Even 3.
Series.
Exactly. So, Duncan Robinson, you have to come in and do your job. You were paid all that money to do that for this moment. I believe that he will be one of the biggest X factors off the bench.
Moving over to our finals predictions, we went through player rankings, right? We went through positional comparisons. We've done pretty much everything you could do here. We talked about X factors. We're talking about the mile high advantage to the lowest altitude in the league with the Miami Heat. We've done pretty much everything, and now it's time to make our predictions. As I want to get 10 wins here in this playoffs, so I think that this is the way to do it. And in all honesty, this is it's kind of sucks to make this prediction because we're not going to be able to make predictions like this for another 10 months, at least when it comes to the playoffs. But my prediction is going to be the Denver Nuggets. I think they just have overall too much. The mile high advantage is going to be too much for this Miami Heat team. We've said that in the past. I've bet against the Heat in 2 of their 3 playoff series now. And just overall to me, I said they were going to get swept by the Milwaukee Bucks. That didn't happen, right? I said they were going to lose in 5 to the Boston Celtics. That didn't happen. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to believe in this grit of the Miami Heat. I'm going to say they lose in 6 now. I'm going to say they lose in 6 instead of 5 and 4. And this that Denver Nuggets team, Jokic, like we've said, he's arguably the best player in the world. And even if you could take him out the game, you still have to worry about guys like Jamal Murray and Michael Porter who could pour in 25 a night. This Nuggets team just has overall too much to me with arguably the best player in the world and a pretty dang good coach. I believe they win in 6, and to no one's surprise, Nikola Jokic is going to be my finals MVP.
Yeah, I have the Nuggets winning in 5. I respect Miami Heat and what they've done to this point, but we just saw the Nuggets who, sweep the Lakers. I think the Lakers are better than the Heat. I think, the fact that it was a competitive 4-game sweep told me everything I needed to know. This Nuggets team is legit. They have what it takes, and they don't back down to anybody. I gave Mike Malone a little bit more credit after that Lakers win too. Even though he was going against Darvingham, not saying much, but this Nuggets team, they've taken care of business, whenever they needed to. Even the Suns gave them a little bit of trouble, but the Nuggets were able to get it done. Jimmy Butler, it's really going to be all on his shoulders. I just, on paper, it just looks way too overwhelming for the Heat. Almost like 2018 LeBron versus Warriors. Maybe not to that extent, but still, it'll take a lot. Yeah, it'll take a lot from Jimmy Butler, and I just don't see that happening. Nikola Jokic, even if you slow him down Nikola Jokic is him getting 22, 15, and 14. I believe that Nikola Jokic will be Finals MVP, and Nuggets will win in 5. I say Miami wins a game. Maybe they're when their backs against the wall. Maybe Game 4 they win, and Nuggets go back to Denver to win the championship on their home floor.
Yeah, this Denver Nuggets team, shout out to Denver. It's their first finals ever, but I think just like the bubble run, Jimmy's he's got this team to this point, but he's probably gonna gas himself out, at a certain point, especially going into Denver with the mile high, where you got to adjust to the the altitude, right? Playing 30 to 35 minutes a night. Like we said, like Melo said, it feels like your lungs are burning, when you try and play the same amount of minutes as you do on level ground. But like you said, just overwhelm. It's going to be too overwhelming from the Denver Nuggets, and I also want to see a franchise get their first championship ever, and I think they can do that here. But that's going to do it for today's show. Today we talked about literally everything you could have possibly talked about aside from hot dog prices in the NBA Finals. We did our takeaways for the third round losers. Also gave our 10th Tap Player of the Week. Any last thoughts before we get out of here as we're heading into the weekend here with Game 1 tonight?
We love the support we're getting from everybody who views the channel. We love it. We could never imagine it would grow like this in such a short time. We appreciate everybody who takes the time out of their day to watch our content. It means a lot to us, and we just hope you guys keep it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Like he said, we're on the road to 300 subs, and we couldn't be more thankful for any and all support that you guys do give us over on any account, right? But without further ado, we'll see you guys next Tuesday for, I'm sure, some of the latest and greatest sports news. By that time, I believe we'll have 2 or 3 games under our belt. I believe 2 games. I believe game
so,
2 is Sunday, and after that it is Wednesday. But we'll have 2 games under our belt, and we're gonna have a completely different outlook, hopefully, on this NBA Finals next Tuesday. But until then, have a great weekend. We'll see you guys then. We're out.